Hello and welcome. Today we're going to be exploring an idea, or more precisely, a set of ideas that have enthralled thinkers and philosophers for the longest of times. Materialism and idealism. The perennial debate between materialism and idealism has captivated thinkers from ancient Greece to modern day laboratories. This clash between viewing reality as fundamentally physical and seeing it as intrinsically mental or spiritual has shaped the very bedrock of Western philosophy, each side posing profound questions and fierce challenges to the other. So today, let's wander through this intellectual landscape and wrestle with the implications of both perspectives. So let's start our journey with materialism, the view that reality is rooted in the tangible, the measurable, and the physical. One of its earliest champions, Democritus, suggested that all things, whether the stars, the earth, or even fleeting thoughts in our minds, are composed of tiny, indivisible particles he called atoms. By convention sweet, by convention bitter, in reality only atoms and void. This assertion of Democritus laid the groundwork for a worldview that treats everything, even our subjective experiences, as products of objective material interactions. Centuries later, Thomas Hobbes would follow in Democritus's footsteps, extending this mechanistic view to human nature itself. In Leviathan, he argued that human beings are nothing but matter in motion, complex machines whose thoughts and emotions arise from physical causes. Hobbes denied any separation between mind and body, between thought and matter. This view, which positions the mind as entirely a byproduct of physical processes, would later form the basis of neurophilosophy and cognitive science. But perhaps no thinker captured the social dimensions of materialism more forcefully than Karl Marx. It is not the consciousness of men that determines their being, he wrote, but on the contrary, their social being that determines their consciousness. In Marx's view, our thoughts, beliefs and ideologies are profoundly shaped by our material conditions, by our economic relations, by the structures of class and production that surround us. Here the mind is not just a byproduct of physical processes, but of social ones too, a revolutionary insight that fueled political movements and reshaped sociology and economics. Yet materialism does not only look backwards. Today, or very recently, thinkers like Daniel Dennett argued that consciousness itself is a kind of grand illusion, a trick of evolutionary processes that allowed us to survive and navigate the world. Consciousness, Dennett insists, is merely an emergent phenomenon of the brain's neural networks. There is no need for a mysterious self lurking behind the scenes. There is no such thing as a consciousness self-independent of the brain's processes, he declares, refuting any hint of dualism. And neurophilosophers like Patricia Churchland go further, arguing that all mental states are reducible to biomechanical processes in the brain. The mind is what the brain does, she claims, suggesting that as neuroscience advances, we will eventually be able to explain the most mysterious of human experiences without reference to anything non-material. And yet, idealism responds. Idealism will not so easily accept this reduction of mind to mere matter. For Plato, who was the earliest and perhaps the grandest of the idealists, the physical world we see around us is but a shadow of, a pale shadow at that, of a true reality, the eternal forms. This world we experience, the visible world, is fleeting, imperfect, an imitation of the higher unchanging realm of ideals. The real entities are the forms, which we apprehend through reason, he argued. In Plato's view, the world we perceive with our senses is illusory, and true knowledge comes from understanding these transcendent forms. Following in Plato's footsteps, George Berkeley argued for a radical immaterialism. To be is to be perceived. He dismissed the notion of matter as a meaningless abstraction, asserting that only minds and their ideas truly exist. Physical objects, Berkeley argued, have no existence outside of perception. This insistence that reality is fundamentally mental forces us to reconsider the very nature of existence. If no one perceives a tree, does it still stand in the forest? For Berkeley, it does not, except in the mind of an ever-perceiving God. And then along comes Immanuel Kant, who offers perhaps the most sophisticated take. Kant, like Plato, was sceptical that we could access reality directly. In his critique of pure reason, he argued that our minds filter and shape all experience, structuring it through categories like space and time. We never see things in themselves, what he calls noumena, but only phenomena, reality as it appears to us, or reality as it appears to consciousness. Thoughts without content are empty. Intuitions without concepts are blind, Kant observed, reminding us that we cannot separate the external world from the mind's innate structuring role. Idealism would reach its more complex, or its most complex expression in Hegel's phenomenology of spirit. I have actually done a video specifically on Hegel's absolute idealism that you should check out. In Hegel's phenomenology of spirit, he argued that reality is a dynamic, self-developing whole. For Hegel, history, ideas, and reality itself evolve through a dialectical process, a clash of opposites, resolving in synthesis. This process, he argued, is the unfolding of the absolute, a kind of cosmic consciousness that comes to know itself through human history. The real is the rational and the rational is the real, Hegel famously claimed. In Hegel's view, reality is ultimately intelligible because it is a byproduct of, or because it is the product of a rational process. And yet, the materialists are not swayed by these lofty claims. They argue that idealism risks abandoning the empirical, grounding itself in abstractions that cannot be tested or verified. For a materialist, Berkeley's assertion that physical objects depend on a perception seems absurd. What of the natural laws that govern the universe independently of any mind? What of the processes in deep space or the ocean depths far from human eyes? Must we invoke God simply to explain the existence of rocks and trees? Moreover, materialists argue that idealism risks anthropomorphizing reality, projecting human thought and consciousness onto the cosmos itself. Marx criticised Hegel for this very reason, accusing him of standing dialectics on its head by making ideas rather than material forces the engine of history. By locating consciousness in social and economic conditions, Marx grounded Hegel's dialectic in the real physical lives of human beings. Idealists, of course, counter these objections. They argue that materialism, by reducing consciousness to mere biomechanical processes, robs human life of meaning, dignity, and freedom. For Kant, the mind is active, not merely passive. It plays a vital role in structuring experience. Without this structuring, what we call objective knowledge is simply, impossible. If we accept a purely materialist view, Are we not condemning ourselves to a world where meaning is an illusion, where freedom is a fiction? Hegelian idealists might add that materialism fails to account for the development of consciousness over time. How does mere matter come to reflect upon itself, as we do when we ask ourselves these very questions? If the universe is only matter in motion, whence comes this mysterious capacity for self-reflection, for art, for philosophy? And so we see ourselves, or find ourselves, should I say, suspended between these two worldviews. Materialism offers us a grounded empirical reality, but risks reducing consciousness to mere dust and neurons. Idealism, by contrast, grants the mind a primary role, but struggles to ground itself in observable reality. Today, some contemporary thinkers seek to bridge this divide. An example of that is people proposing of this attempt to bridge the gap, as it were. People proposing that consciousness is a fundamental property of all matter. A view that suggests the material and mental are like inseparable aspects of reality. Perhaps then we are maybe closer to understanding the truth, but not by choosing one side or the other, but by recognizing the deep dialectical relationship between matter and mind. For as we debate these issues, as we explore the mysteries of existence, we enact the very tension these philosophies describe. We become ourselves the stage upon which material reality and ideal spirit collide. And so, as we end this video, let us not merely settle into the comfort of one side or the other. Let us keep the tension alive, this dialectic that drives all philosophy forward. Let us hold in our minds both atoms and ideas, matter and spirit, as we continue to search for the elusive, shimmering truth that lies somewhere beyond both. So that is a rundown of the sort of debate between materialism and idealism. And there's a lot of beauty and poetry to this subject, I think, as well as like a search for actual truth. There is this sort of aesthetic quality to it as well. So it's an incredibly interesting subject to delve into. So if you found any of this interesting or informative, maybe you learned something you didn't know or whatever, then I would like to ask if you wouldn't mind doing the YouTube things, like the video, subscribe to the channel and so on. And if you think I am talking absolute nonsense and that I'm wrong about everything and so on, please jump in the comments and let me know, because it is only through the sharing of ideas, the collision and the collaboration of ideas, that we all collectively move closer to the truth. So if you do think I am talking absolute nonsense, come and let me know. But thank you very much for watching and for listening, and I hope to see you all on the next one.